rectangles, numbers, and big legs. All of these things matter a lot when it comes to football. But today we're going to talk about another thing that matters arguably as much, or maybe even more if you care about the people behind the sport. And that is the gladiators that take the field, the players. What do they do? Who are they? Why do they matter? Now, first things first, we're going to talk about music, because I know that reading all of the players on a field is hard. 11 on 11? What does that mean? Quarterback, receiver, tight end, center, guard, tackle. Oh my gosh, that's so many words. It is. But today, I'm going to help you learn it in a fun, bouncy way with an amazing soundtrack that's actually going to serve as our intro for all of the other episodes coming up, made by Kaiwa Yu. You can check out their SoundCloud right above me right here. You can do it now. I'll do it again at the end of the video. But that is what we're going to be talking about today. Why is football centered around gladiators and symphonic harmony? I'm going to explain it today on this episode of Big Ball Jerry Show. Now, why does music relate to football? Well, it all starts with the big men up front. If you are a football fan and you're watching this as a rehash, I'm starting with the most important player. I'm not talking about the quarterback, which we'll get to in a minute. I'm not talking about any of those players that you hear talked about if you're not a football fan. You're a quarterback or receiver. I'm talking about the offensive and defensive linemen. These people are your beat. Now, if you've ever been in a musical ensemble, or you've been in a band, or even if you listen to music, you know the drums are the most important thing. If your drummer is off, then your singer is off. Maybe if you're in a band, your violins, your cellos, your basses, your saxophones, whatever you have, are going to be off. And it's just the same with football. If your offensive line is not in rhythm, then the entire rest of the team is going to fall apart. That is the essence of football. Same with the defense. The defense has the same issue. If your defensive line cannot get pressure, if your defensive line cannot move that front line past that line of scrimmage, you will have no rhythm. You will have no tempo. You'll be completely controlled by the other team. Now, the reason why this is important is because football is all about teamwork. And you may be talking about how you want to know more about the quarterback or these other positions, but first we're going to start out with the big men up front, because they are your beat, your technical. This is how the rhythm goes for the entire team. Now, on the offensive side, it all starts with the center. The center is the player that snaps the ball. Whenever I talk about plays, that's the guy who starts with the ball. It's not the quarterback, it's the center. The center pops the ball up to the quarterback, and the quarterback starts doing stuff with it, or whatever player gets it. On either side of the center are your guards. Your guards are really important, man. And with your center, protect the middle of the field. It protects right up to your quarterback's face. And if those positions are bad, then your team is going to suck. Now, the most important thing, though, are your tackles. Those are your outside guys. Those are the guys protecting against the best players in the league at getting to the backfield. Those guys are even the same amount of importance. And if they can protect whatever you're doing offensively, you have a chance of getting that 10 yards. You have a chance of getting a touchdown in 3, 4, 5 plays. But if they are off rhythm, your entire offense falls apart. And all that you can say is, ooh, I wish we would have spent more money on that center position. I tell you what. And you'd be right. Because when it comes down to it, that is the most important part of any NFL team offense. The offensive line. Now, defensive line. What do they do? The ability to run the football from the offense, keeping that area locked down tight, and getting to that quarterback on the other side of the field. Now, this is sparked by usually a line defined by either 3, 4, or 5 people. Sometimes you'll get an extra person in, and that's called a blitz, which we'll get into later. Defensive line's main purpose are those things I just mentioned. You got to stop the run. You got to get to the quarterback. Now, defensive line, if you do those two things, your defense will be awesome. If you don't, it doesn't matter how good your outsides are, it doesn't matter how colorful they may be or how amazing they may make big plays and swells of greatness. It does not matter. Your defense will suck if those guys are not good or great. Now, you may be wondering, why are these trenches so important? And the reason is because, like I said, football is all based off of, can you get 10 yards in 4 plays? Or 3 if you want to be safe. And if you cannot protect that line where you start, you're in deep shit. It's just basic math. So, that's what is the most important part of football and the gladiators on the field. So the next time someone says, oh, quarterback, you say big leg kicker. Then if they say, well, oh yeah, they punt and they score the threes, but then it's the quarterback, and then you go, no. Don't forget about the offensive and defensive linemen. Then you can start back with the quarterback, who's the next person we are indeed going to be talking about. The quarterback is not the most important player on the field, but they are the hardest to get because a quarterback needs to be able to read the defense unbelievably well. They need to be able to throw passes, short passes, long passes. They need to be able to decipher things like cover 3, cover 2, cover 4, corridors defense. All these things that you're probably looking at this show and going, what the fuck are you talking about? They have to be able to read all that on the field in an instant and be able to make correct calls. That's why the quarterback, for a lot of people, is the most important position in football. It is the most important position, I agree, but it's not the most important players on the field. That makes sense. Now, quarterbacks have to be able to do all those things. And above all that, they are your cello. In any band or orchestra, in any orchestra band, right? Your cello is kind of this smooth, silky, kind of like a bass, but a little bit more colorful, add some light. That's kind of what your quarterback is. Your quarterback is not going to set the tone of the game. People that say that are wrong. That's your defensive and offensive lines. The quarterback, though, is huge at maintaining that original beat. They're huge in maintaining it. They're huge in creating swells of greatness with their receivers and tight ends. Receivers and tight ends are your violas and violins. Why? Well, you don't see them sometimes. You don't think about them sometimes, but when you do, they are amazing. When you are in a fourth quarter and you have to drive your team down the field and your quarterback makes an amazing throw 60 yards across the field to a receiver, what does it feel like to a fan? And if you're not a fan, I'll tell you what it feels like. It feels like going to a big concert, a big band concert, and hearing that swell of strings and just the beautiful overlay as it goes into the next section of the song. That's what it feels like to have a receiver or a tight end catch a pass. That's why they are violins and violas to me, because every play they can make a beautiful swelling noise of beauty, or they can just not be there and it can be something else that matters. Which brings us to the last element of an NFL offense and our great gladiators of the game, and that is your running backs. Running backs are so integral to the game. Yet, they are not sought after as importantly as they were in the old days. Because, well, they don't create the beat. They do not have to have unbelievable sense of coverages like a quarterback does. Their job is to run the football, find holes, and be able to run extremely fast, and be able to be physical, and be okay putting their body on the line. They are another cello player. Now you may be wondering, well, Jeremiah, you just said the quarterback is the cello player. You have two. And a lot of big bands do have multiple cello players. And the reason why I put them on the same level is because if you look at any amazing game of football, you will occasionally get that running play that sets the tone. Running backs set the tone along with the offensive line and the quarterback. They work tandem and tandem and tandem. They're not as of a rise as a receiver, but they're also not as bassy and integral as the offensive or defensive line. They're like a quarterback. They just don't show up as much in your general mind because you don't think of that 4-yard grind as the same as a quarterback formulating passes to their great high-string receivers. That is an offense. Now, you may disagree with me. You may say, well, Jeremiah, running back is nowhere near as important as a quarterback. And then I will point out to you that every Super Bowl team can run the football. And then I'll point out to you that every Super Bowl team has a good or great offensive line or a great or good defensive line. And I'll point out to you that their outsides don't need to be amazing, but they have their sparks. Because like I said, receivers are violins and violas. Well, on the defense, your corners and safeties are your trumpets. Trumpets are beautiful, right? They cut through. They make amazing solo moments. In football, it's just the same. When Richard Sherman picked off that pass in a NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers back in 2013. Don't worry, I'm going to go over that for people that don't know what that is. That is a trumpet moment. And just like a trumpet, it takes a little bit to learn. And I know that a lot of you may not know what an interception is, but basically it's when the quarterback throws a ball to their receiver to make that swell of beauty, and then a trumpet comes in, cuts the entire thing short, and has their own little solo piece when a cornerback picks off the ball. And that is why I compare corners to trumpets. They are indeed something that can be a solo act. They can take over a performance if they somehow manage to, but also they don't have the power alone to do it. They need a little bit of assistance, usually by the beat, the defensive line, the linebackers, as their own drum beats go around. They need support. So that's why corners and safeties may be these amazing things that can, amazing people that can cut through amazing drives, amazing plays, but without a defensive line, they don't mean anything. So, in conclusion, why is football the gladiator sport? Why is it like a symphony of beauty? It's all about your beat, which a lot of people don't really think about. When you go see a huge band concert, you don't usually go, wow, the drummer was so good. The drummer made me cry today. Like, when I think about the section that made me cry, I think about the percussions. No one ever says that. Oh, yeah, the 36 rests and the 2 beats. Oh, man. But you know what would happen without those 2 beats after the 36 rests? Everyone would be off a beat. Everyone would be screwed up. The entire thing would fall apart. It wouldn't matter how much you love those violins and violas and cellos. Doesn't matter how much you love that trumpet. It would suck if your bass beat didn't work. And that is why football is the ultimate team sport. That's why every player matters. That's why you got to pay attention to these positions. And that's why I explain it today. So when I talk about next week and the weeks going forward about wacky hijinks on, with the news media, or about comeback stories, or about coaches, or about which team you should follow next season, because I'm going to have everyone on here pick their own team, because that's always really fun. I want you all to have this base understanding of what a football team is and what it's not. And what it is a team sport. What it's not is a quarterback willing team to victory, because that's not a real thing. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, the intro is made by Kaiwu. You can check out their SoundCloud up here. You can go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to. We'll have another video up next week, Tuesday at 10 a.m. And of course, last but not least, go ahead and like and comment, because I would like to know what your favorite type of player is now that I've explained how they're like instruments. Tell me why it reminds you of an instrument and why you like that instrument. Tell me why the instrument reminds you of the player and why you like that player now. I'm also going to put a playlist on some of my favorite game highlights if y'all want to try to watch them now that you know a little bit more about the positions and a little bit more about the game. And you can also comment and tell me what you thought about watching maybe your first ever football highlight video. Now, see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in.